What do you got, Coach? 3 things that all coaches need.
Who would you put on your Mount Rushmore of coaches?
New York or the Aces? Definitely going with the Aces.
All right, 4th dial. Who has the tougher job, coaches or officials? If you could have any superpower, what would it be and why? But Texas is different. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is the Coaches Co-op. I'm your host, Michael Prejean, better known as Coach P. Each week, I am teaming up with coaches across the country to break down the wins, the lessons, and everything in between. This week, I am teaming up with Kyle Adams, Principal and Chief Strategist of It's Bigger Than the Ball, LLC, longtime college coach, author, and transformational leader. Listen, y'all, Kyle has spent over 20 years developing student athletes at HBCUs, served as the Deputy Director of Athletics at Delaware State University, and is the driving force behind getting the historic 1982 Cheney State Lady Wolves women's basketball team into the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame. He is a coach who has literally written a book on leadership, Discarding the Mask, and he's here to break down what it really means when he says it's bigger than the ball. Ladies and gentlemen, y'all welcome to the Co-op with your real hands or with your virtual hands, Kyle Adams. Kyle, how you doing, brother?
Outstanding, Coach P. That's an awesome intro, man. Thank you for that.
Listen,
I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you.
I am glad that you are here. And like I tell people, man, when I give them the intro, I'm just giving back what you gave me, right? I want people to really know that you're doing this thing. All right, Kyle, your company, It's Bigger Than the Ball, immediately grabs attention. All right. So this segment is called Talk That Talk. So what I want you to do is talk that talk about all of the great work that you are doing through It's Bigger Than the Ball.
Well, Coach P, thank you again for the opportunity to be on your platform, man. It's Bigger Than the Ball has been, wait a minute. It's Bigger Than the Ball has been a real labor of love. In 2017, I was coaching at North Carolina Central and in Durham, North Carolina. And while in Durham, man, I felt a strong spirit of entrepreneurism. Being around the history of Black Wall Street and learning so much about what people in that city, what they were building. It just connected with my spirit, and I started to think of different ways that I could utilize my experiences, my expertise. I've done this a very long time, and I think coaches sometimes they just see themselves as coaches, and they don't see themselves in being able to really leverage their skills and talents in other ways. I wanted to start this business to really help coaches and schools and institutions and different people really develop their leadership capacity. I've always been really invested in my growth and development as a coach, recognizing that we are first and foremost educators, and that if we're not growing and improving in the ways that we need to, the people that we lead, they're doomed. So we've got to constantly be learning and growing and developing. And I wanted to help provide that level of dexterity and agility for coaches, right? You think about how long you've been coaching, Coach P, how much we've had to adapt and change, right?
Yes.
We coach very differently than we coached 5 years ago. Then we coached 10 years ago. We coached very differently than our coaches coached us. And I think coaches have to constantly be learning and growing and adapting and expanding themselves. So I've had an opportunity to come and do work with coaching staffs at various institutions like University of Maryland, Eastern Shore, Lincoln University in Pennsylvania. We've done some curriculum work. I don't know if you've read Coach Thompson's book, I Came as a Shadow.
Oh, it's I thought it was on my bookshelf behind me. It's on my bookshelf in the room. But
so
yes.
we created my thought partner and line brother. His name is Tracy A. Jones. He's the founder of an entity called the Pawn Lab. He and I collaborated to do to build a curriculum around Coach Thompson's book on Zoom. To really, we really believe that book shares a lot about what coaches need to be, how they need to be thinking and growing. I'm of an age where I watch coaches like John Thompson, John Cheney, Vivian Stringer, George Raveling, right? Coaches who stood for more than just winning and losing games, who they were committed to developing our people in our communities. And I always strive to model my coaching in that same vein. So I think that book is really powerful. As you shared earlier, we've done we worked very hard at really recognizing. I'm a Cheney grad, and my grandmother was a Cheney grad, and one of my earliest memories as a child was her watching the 1982 Women's National Championship game in her living room with Cheney State playing. And, you know, at that time, I didn't know the significance of it. I knew those women looked like me. I knew my grandmother and her sorority sisters were going crazy in the house. You know, I fast forward, I become the head coach there. And I really start to dig deep and find ways to connect the women that I was coaching to their heritage and the women that played in that program. Yeah. And as I really started to dig deeper and turn the soil over, I started to learn a lot about the first that these, you know, there's a lot of firsts with those women. Of course, first women HBCU to play in a national championship game at Division I level. First all Black women's coaching staff to play in a Final Four or in a national championship game, you know, and was coaching at Pine Bluff, got an opportunity to take our team to the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame. We played Tennessee, and I'm looking up Cheney stuff in there. And I saw a few things, but it wasn't what I thought it should be. And it just started me on this mission, and really reaching out to different entities, harassing the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame, you know, creating a storyboard for ESPN to create a docu short called The Lone Wolves. We've had CBS Sports do some work with us. And then ultimately that pressure, we felt like got the ladies into the Hall of Fame last year. I was really proud of that. Those women, you know, they're of an age where, you know, their accomplishments could go, you know, go unnoticed. And I say this to you also, Coach P, looking at all the ways in today's landscape that our history is trying to be diminished and covered up. I'm very humble and honored that we were able to do that work and do that for those ladies and get them in the hall. And not just for those ladies, but for our institutions. You know, our institutions, not just Cheney, you know, schools like Hampton and A&T and Virginia State, Virginia Union, you know, different. There are a great deal of programs who've had great success at the national level that don't get acknowledged at that on that level. So, you know, that's a huge accomplishment to me. You shared about me, my endeavors into writing a book, you know, experiencing everything that I have over the last 20 plus years. I felt like I needed to share it, and not so much for myself, but just to share my journey for others to learn and not just the good things, to share my failures also, and things that I've thought that I could do better, and things that I think I did well at. I talk a great deal and speak a great deal about how coaching women's basketball has impacted my life, and what I felt and have continued to feel my responsibility is as a man who coaches women, who has coached women, is to develop, to encourage and inspire women in and towards leadership.
Let me jump in right here.
Yeah.
Let me jump in right here.
Go.
So you mentioned something that is very, very interesting, very near and dear to my heart, and that's a man who's coaching young women. So for me, I got involved in coaching young women. It's 2 decades now. So my youngest sister played basketball. That's how I started coaching young women. Never in my life did I think I'd do it. All I ever wanted to be was a high school boys basketball coach, right? That was like that's what I wanted to do. Now, initially, I didn't take that route. That's another story for another day. But Coach, how did you get involved in coaching women's basketball?
Great question. I was at an NAIA school coaching men. I was getting my master's, and I was running a residence hall. I was the director of multicultural student affairs, but I was also coaching men's basketball. And when I finished my master's, at the time, home was Delaware, Philadelphia, the Philadelphia area, and I was looking to get back that way. And my dream had always been to go back and coach at Cheney. I had always envisioned going back to coach the men's program at Cheney. And an opportunity opened for me I applied for a women's basketball assistance position. Again, I knew the history of the program, and was excited about helping to kind of restore that tradition. I'm there. A woman named Marilyn Stevens provided me an opportunity to be her assistant coach for 2 years. And after those 2 years, I was elevated to head coach. And coaching women really stretched me in a lot of different ways. I found that I needed to grow in a lot of areas. I wanted to grow and develop in a lot of areas. I was very intentional about reaching out to men who had coached women and had success. I just wanted to get better. I didn't want what I didn't know, or whatever I was lacking, to limit those women. I didn't want my stuff to keep them from being successful. So I just became insatiable about learning and growing myself in order to give those women a better experience. And it really, really helped stretch me as a man and as a leader, and as an advocate. I recognize, this is their game as much as, we're in positions to coach them and in leadership. I wanted to create an environment where we were growing their leadership. It wasn't just about me being in charge. It was about building a program that helped them step into and come into their own leadership and of our program, and how that extended and expanded out into their lives when the ball stopped bouncing and when they left us. Some of my greatest experiences in coaching have come in coaching women, to build genuine, sincere relationships with deep, meaningful relationships with young women that have nothing to do with them in the physical. I think is amazing for young men. And I often talk with young male coaches about that responsibility that we have, and understanding that this is their game, and we're here to serve them. So yeah, man, coaching women took me from Cheney to North Carolina Central, where I worked with an amazing woman named Vanessa Taylor. From there, I left, went to Delaware State as an assistant. From Delaware State, I went to the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff. And I just have had tremendous experiences coaching women, but also being an advocate for coaching young women and being on different platforms and talking about where we need to be as men who coach women. So I thank you for asking that question.
No, Coach, that is excellent. I love how you framed it as this is their game. This is their game. I love how you frame that. So at Delaware State, let's talk about Delaware State just a little bit. Selective silence. Talk about that.
So we had a student protest. We had a student protest where students protested out in front of the campus police station, very upset about sexual assaults that they felt like weren't being properly reported and addressed. And it was a big thing. We had a town hall that followed that lasted from 6 p.m. till 1 a.m. And we heard students, female students, male students, talking about how they just didn't feel protected and supported. They felt like, they were victims of people who were still walking around campus that they had to see every day. And, myself, our director of athletics, Alicia Shields Gatson, and then again, my thought partner through the Pawn Lab, Tracy A. Jones, we were looking for a way to really get our student athletes engaged. At Delaware State, we had over 460 student athletes across 20 sports, which make up the largest student cohort on the campus. We need to have some level of influence and responsibility to making sure the campus was safe. So in that, we did some programming that brought male athletes in to a space and had direct conversations about what it is they need to do, what their thoughts are about, and how we could better support a safe campus for young women, right? And what that looks like in the residence halls, what that looks like on campus, what that looks like out in the community. We did the same thing with our women students and listened to them talk about what their concerns were, and how we could better support them, walking them to class in the evenings, right? Making sure doors are locked. We've lived on campuses and residence halls, and we know what it's like when people leave the doors cracked and things like that.
Yeah.
So to be able to provide that level of programming for our students, to have conversation about something that they felt like wasn't being addressed campus wide. I was really, I'm really thankful that we were able to do that work, and I commend our athletic director, Alicia Shields Gatson, for having the courage and allowing us to move in that way to bring that to light.
Man, that's good stuff. So let me just recap. So if you are just now joining us, or if you need to kind of catch up, let's say maybe you were driving and then you weren't really paying attention as you were listening to the podcast, you are in the Coaches Co-op. I'm your host. My name is Michael Prejean, better known as Coach P. We are here with Kyle Adams, strategic educational leader, transformative coach, and keynote speaker. He has been at multiple HBCUs. He is the principal and chief strategist of It's Bigger Than the Ball LLC. So got to start at an NAIA school, then transitioned to Pine Bluff. No, not Pine Bluff. Cheney. Was Cheney next?
Cheney was next.
Cheney was next. Assistant head coach of women's basketball at North Carolina Central, interim head coach at Delaware State, then became the associate head coach at the University of Arkansas Pine Bluff, or as we like to call it around these parts, UAPB.
Yeah.
UAPB. Okay, coach, I want to back up a little bit, man.
Okay.
There's so much here that I'm trying to wrap my mind around. I want to talk about your family. I'm gonna kind of get off my script. You're a Cheney grad. How many members in your family are Cheney grads?
Just Coach P, just one. My grandmother. I think it's important to always
Just your grandmother. Okay.
about that. I need to elevate her name. I think it's always important when we speak about ancestors to say their name.
Yes.
My grandmother, her name was Mildred. Her name was Mildred Holden Vaughn. She was class of 1945, Cheney State Normal College. It wasn't
Okay.
Cheney University at that time.
Okay. So here's what I need you to do for us. I'm an HBCU product. I understand the importance of the HBCU to the community. Talk about the pride in your household for Cheney State and what Cheney State means to the community.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Coach P. I've always taken a great deal of pride in being a Cheney grad. Cheney is founded in 1837. It stands as our first and oldest of our HBCUs. I've always taken a great deal of pride in that. It was founded as a teachers' college. And you think about the year 1837, our people were still in bondage in this country.
That's correct.
And when you start to think about the fight for our people to become educated, to have an institution that was preparing teachers at that time, it brings deep in my spirit, and not just the pride for my institution, but the pride and the pedagogy of all of our institutions and why they were created and why they're just as valuable and valuable today. When you look at, our HBCUs make up a large portion of the doctors in this country, the lawyers in this country. I don't have the statistics in front of me. The dentists in this country, the judges in this country. And I think that at times we as a people sometimes can get caught up in the shiny things, right?
Right.
And,
Right.
And what I've always loved about HBCUs, and I feel very honored to have had an opportunity to serve at 5. I've had 6 tours of duty, being twice at Delaware State. I feel like, our schools are they're historical entities, and they're community engagement entities, because they don't just lift the students that attend. They lift the communities around them. They lift the families in which those young people come from. And I really believe that we're in a day and time, Coach P, that I say this often. I'm sure that you've seen the movie School Days.
Yes.
The most poignant part of the movie School Days to me is when the president of the university, President McPherson, is meeting with the head of the board of trustees. And they're talking about why people won't give to HBCUs, right? And the chair says, it happens that the Catholics give to Notre Dame, right? The Jews give to Yeshiva. The Mormons give to Brigham Young. Who gives to Black colleges? The federal government, right? And that sticks with me because imagine, Coach P, no matter where our people went to school, no matter where they went to school,
Yeah.
this day and time, we made a conscious effort as a community to give to our institutions. Where could they be in the next 5 to 10 to 20 years, right? If we did that as a way of building community, right? You went to University of Texas, you went to University of Houston, regardless of where you went to school. From now, as we move forward, we're giving our money, our time, our talent, our treasure to these historic institutions. Where could they be? So that has a lot to do that drives my passion and the ethos of why I love our schools, why I'll always be a deep advocate of one, regardless if I'm employed by one or not. I love our schools. It's not a wave for me. My school saved my life. Cheney saved my life. And then I've had an opportunity to work at other schools and be involved in that same transformation of other young people. So I love our schools.
Listen, that is outstanding. So I have seen that's an ongoing conversation.
Yes, sir.
Throughout generations about why don't we give more to our schools, right? I saw it happen on a smaller scale in my hometown. So in my hometown of Lafayette, Louisiana, it's in southwestern Louisiana. It's a heavy Catholic population. There was the Black Catholic school.
Mm-hmm.
It was Holy Rosary Institute.
Mm-hmm.
So I watched as Holy Rosary went from one of the best schools in the city in all things. I watched as people who graduated from there chose to not send their kids there anymore. And they would send their kids to the Turlings Catholic, or they would send them to St. Thomas More Catholic. And eventually Holy Rosary closed down. So we have to, and I'm talking with myself, right? I don't give consistently, right? But I'm sure there are a lot of people who are in that boat. But I believe this. I've had this conversation quite often. Even though our HBCUs produce the most Black doctors, dentists, lawyers, many other professions, I believe that our HBCUs would produce even more if our athletes really seriously considered going to HBCUs. And this is why I say this. If you have all of the Travis Hunters and all of the Shadurs at your HBCUs, that's moving some kids out of roster spots. So perhaps that kid is not trying to be an NFL player anymore. Maybe that kid's like, you know what? I need to go and be a dentist. I need to go and go to law school. So how strategically, how can we get consistently to get more of our kids to seriously consider attending HBCUs?
Well, I think that's a multifaceted question.
It is. Take your time.
But I think one of the, a few things that, one, we have to give, right? And we have to give. And when I say give, yeah, our institutions need money, right? They can use financial resource. But we've all heard time, talent, and treasure, right? And
Yes.
whatever your time is, we've become educated, we've gone out, we've built networks. How are we utilizing our network to help elevate that campus, to help connect and provide internships for students at that campus, right? Our talent, whatever it is that we do, right? I don't know who edits your pod. Maybe there's some students at Texas Southern who are looking for internship hours, and they can, I think there are different ways that we as a community can give back and get in front of these students and showing them the viability of our experience. But I also believe that I think we have to really start to look at the numbers and the data around, how many of our kids are making it to professional sports and whatever sport it is they play. And we all know that a great deal of the reason why our athletes choose to attend PWIs has to do with their belief that they can become a pro. They can get closer to being a pro. And I think that and not just our student athletes, think that's another part, because it's not just on the students, it's also the parents. You know, I think a great deal of parents believe that proximity to whiteness and white institutions and white systems will help to get their students towards a level of success. And we have to believe and understand the value of what it is that we have to offer. You know, I remember someone talking to me about, you know, Dion, and when Dion left Jackson State, you know, would top recruits still choose to go to HBCUs? And I had to gently remind them that before Deion Sanders got to Jackson State, Walter Payton played at Jackson State.
That's right.
Jackie Slater played at Jackson State. Right?
That's right.
Our institutions have been producing professional athletes for
Hall of Fame
professional athletes.
That's right.
For years. So I think that it requires us to educate not just student athletes, but also parents on the value proposition of what this investment means, not just for the next 4 years, but for the next 40 years of your life. Because I don't just view it as your child getting a degree. It's more about community building, right?
That's it. Yes.
You know, when they leave, they feel a sense of responsibility to lift the next group. You know, we of men of like attainment learned that we are called to lift as we climb. And that's important for our people, an important precept for our people to attach themselves to. I can't make it till you make it. And I think society and capitalism gets us kind of caught up on, you know, well, I got to make it and you got to figure it out for yourself. And when our people have had their greatest levels of success and achievement in this country, it's been when we've done it together. So I hope that answers your question.
No, that's good. So what you did, you know, and I'm just really just kind of lobbing some things out there for those who may be watching or listening to this later. But what you did is you took us to the root. You know, you took us to the root. There's got to be some education. Hey, this didn't just start with Dion, right? So perhaps the greatest running back to ever play the game played at an HBCU. Perhaps the greatest wide receiver to ever play the game, Jerry Rice,
Mississippi
played at an HBCU.
Yes, sir.
Right. And that's just, we're just getting started there. You know, I have an uncle who played at Kentucky State, played basketball at Kentucky State. And, you know, he would tell me, hey, I asked him, did you guys ever play University of Kentucky? And he'll just tell me, man, they didn't want to see us.
Them Kentucky State teams were very good.
Yes. Yep. The thoroughbreds.
Yes.
So, you know, he would say, hey, listen, they didn't want to see us. So the education has to be there. And then you gave us a quotable, a co-op quotable. I can't make it until you make it. So that's at the roots of getting our kids to come back home, right? Just having that understanding, building that level of community. So as an educator on the high school level, I'm very, very fortunate to teach a course, African American Studies. So all of the kids who come through that course, I'm an advocate for HBCUs, right? So I advocate for them to, hey, when you start doing your applications, I need you to apply to, you know, at least to Texas Southern and Prairie View, right here in the state of Texas. It's an experience like none other. I have a couple of young ladies, young mentees. One is at North Carolina Central right now. Another is at Albany State in Georgia. A third is at Prairie View A&M. And I love that. You know, I love that they're going there. And I'm talking about, these are some of the most talented, academically talented. They were all student athletes, but these are some of the most academically talented young people I've ever come across. So to have them plying their trades at HBCUs, man, it's delightful. It brings joy to my heart. You hit some great things there. Did some great things there.
I say this to you, Coach P. You know, whenever I get an opportunity, I've had an opportunity to meet with student leaders in the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference. And one of the things that I shared with them is they need to know unequivocally that they are our best and our brightest. They are our best and our brightest. And they are not settling, regardless of what people may try to tell them, because they made a choice to attend an HBCU. I think it's one of the most heroic displays of agency, a young person, a top athlete, when you have choices to make a choice to attend an HBCU, right?
That's right.
Because what that means for your family, for generations to come. And I'll give this to you. We're the only group of people on the history of this planet to give our children to the oppressor to educate. And I say that without trying to be controversial.
Right.
But why would we not want our young people to have an opportunity to be educated by people that look like them? I think in today's ecosystem is one of the most courageous things that our young people can do. So I'm excited because I believe that we're going to see more people choosing our schools, especially when you think about the political landscape.
Definitely. And what you said, it's only controversial if you're looking for controversy.
Right.
That's the way I look at it. I'm an HBCU graduate. I'm an HBCU product. My parents are HBCU products. My wife is an HBCU product. Her parents are HBCU products. I have a sister who graduated from Dillard. I have a sister-in-law who is a Gramblinite. So excellence through HBCUs through and through. I'm a staunch advocate. Let me do my commercial right here, brother Kyle. Let me do my commercial right here. Listen, we're going to get back to this conversation in just a second. We're doing something a little bit different today in the co-op. I got Kyle Adams here, and we are all about building championship level systems on and off the court. Listen, this episode is brought to you by, let me just say what I want to say. You need a mentor, people. Okay? You need a mentor. If you're looking at me and you're like, man, listen, this bald head, light skinned dude, I don't want him to be my mentor. That's absolutely fine. In this book, The Path for Coaches, Volume 1, Mentoring, you got about 20 or so authors, okay? Yours truly is one of these authors. You need a mentor. So what I need you to do is I want you to go ahead and go to Amazon.com and go ahead and buy this book, The Path for Coaches, Volume 1, Mentoring. I believe I wrote a pretty good chapter in this book. But let me tell you, it ain't the best one in the book. So if you're looking for a mentor, if you don't know what to look for in a mentor, if you are a mentor and you want to sharpen your sword to make sure that you're doing the best job that you can do, then this book is for you. The Path for Coaches, Volume 1, Mentoring. You can find it on Amazon.com. Go ahead and support some great people who helped co-author this book. All right, back to it. We are in the Coaches Co-op with Kyle Adams. Kyle, I know that you have done some mentoring. I heard that you were a mentor of the year. Did I get that correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So we're just going to switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about mentoring. What is the most underrated quality in a great coach or mentor?
Modeling.
Dig deep in that for us.
Modeling. When we mentor, we think a lot of times it's about what we say, right? And what we're pouring into a mentee. But the greatest attribute of great mentorship is what we model, right? And I can talk about what you need to be doing. But if I'm not walking that in my everyday, it makes my words really shallow. And that goes for when you're mentoring coaches, it goes for coaches and what it is they're trying to instill in their student athletes, right? Kids aren't, it's not about what you know, it's about how you make people feel and how you walk in your life is what you're modeling, and how you walk in your life is that something I want to emulate. It doesn't matter how knowledgeable you are. So I think that's extremely important for mentors to grab hold to, that ensuring that they're modeling appropriate behaviors that they want their mentees to follow.
That's good. That's good. So who were your mentors? So,
Oh man.
just as a man, you talked about being a man in this women's space. It's their game, being an advocate. So who are some of the people that served as your mentor and taught you how to walk this walk?
Man, one of the first people I reached out to when I started coaching women was someone who's one of my closest and dearest friends. His name is Fred Batchelor. He was the head women's basketball coach for over 20 years at the University of Maryland Eastern Shore.
Okay.
And just think about that for a minute. A black man, 20 years at one institution, right? We see coaches get let go and fired all the time, right?
Yeah.
To have an opportunity to grow and develop a basketball program, but also grow and develop young women for over 20 plus years. He's been one of the biggest influencers of my coaching and what I've needed to be as a man in this game. A gentleman that I would tell you to look up, Coach P, his name is Hernando Planels. Hernando, when I met him, I was coaching at North Carolina Central, and he was the associate head coach at Duke for the women. And Hernando taught me a great deal about, I'm telling you, he's the associate coach, greatest responsibility. Hernando was still able to build his own products and to build his own branding. And it's been able to help and sustain him as he's moved forward through women's basketball. He's now working with the NBA overseas. There's so many people who've influenced me. A woman I worked with named Vanessa Taylor. She was the woman who I worked with at North Carolina Central. I can go on for days about my experience in Durham and how it changed my life. But Vanessa provided me that opportunity. And this is a woman who had done a great deal of winning in her career. But she did it with grace and poise. She just returned to Johnson C. Smith as the head women's basketball coach there. She's had a huge influence on my growth and development. And lastly, I would say Alicia Shields Gadsden. Dr. Gadsden was the athletic director who provided me an opportunity to serve as her deputy. And she allowed me to bring and do a lot of the things that I was really passionate about in student athlete development, mental health awareness. We were on at the start of NIL. So I was heavily involved in starting to connect our student athletes with open doors and different platforms where they could start to market themselves. We brought women's wrestling to Delaware State University, the first for an HBCU. We were able to start a girls wrestling camp. We had over 90 student athletes from around the country come to Delaware for our wrestling camp. But Dr. Gadsden saw something in me as an administrator, not just a coach. And sometimes in this realm, and I'm sure you may see it at times, you're a coach, you're an educator, but you also have some entrepreneurial endeavors. And sometimes that's threatening to people. And it can be threatening to administrators sometimes. And Dr. Gadsden supported that. She really encouraged me to dive into that. There's so many people that I could credit. The reason I wrote the book is a woman named Joy Walker, who poured into me. I'll give you this, and I don't mean to be so verbose, The other thing I
No,
think is important,
go.
Coach P, is that recognizing that we have mentors that aren't alive anymore. And what I mean by that is I listen to I'm a big proponent of personal development. And I listen to a lot of different people on YouTube. One of the people I listen to a great deal is a man named Earl Nightingale. Um, Earl Nightingale was probably one of the earliest personal development educators. He has a recording that I would tell your listeners to listen to. It's called "The Strangest Secret," in recognizing, you know, we don't always just have to connect to people who are alive. We can get that coaching and mentoring and growth from recordings. I spend a lot of time in my car listening to different things. Earl Nightingale, Wayne Dyer, John Wesley Bryant today. But really being fanatical about trying to expand and grow in yourself. There's so many, think about it. There's in no other day and time in the history of the world do we have so much access to information that can help us grow and develop in the ways that we need to. So not just mentors that are alive, mentors
Reach
who are
back.
no longer with us. Yeah. Yep.
We can reach back into another realm. That's good. That's good. You mentioned the book. So your foray into authorship. Talk about that. So before we write a book, there's usually seedlings, right? There's usually seeds. So before you really get into the book, I want you to talk about the seeds. What were the seeds that were being planted that became the book?
Great question. So I've always loved literature, and I credit my mother, Cheryl Denise Vaughan Adams. God rest her soul. I lost my mother in May, but she's a huge reason why I fell in love with books and reading. And I found myself, Coach P, having these thoughts and feelings about different things that I was seeing in the sports landscape, culturally, socially, different things that are going on around me. And I haven't always, but I started journaling. I became a big journal person, and I got 5-6 journals that I just have, whatever my thoughts were, I start getting them down. And one of my first forays into writing and publishing, I wrote an article called "That's Foul," and "That's Foul" was stemmed from some research that I had come across by a man named Dr. Andrew Dix. He's a professor at Middle Tennessee State University. And he did some research that found that women at historically Black colleges and universities on basketball teams were called for significantly more fouls than their counterparts at PWIs. So why that struck me so passionately was because coaching at Cheney, what many people don't know, Cheney is the only HBCU in the Pennsylvania State Athletic Conference. And as an undergrad, I watched questionable officiating, men's and women's, right? I would come back as an alum and watch games. And then as a coach, I would experience it where my kids were being officiated differently. And I felt compelled to talk about how this type of bias impacts young women who attend HBCUs, right? Like, why should they not have a positive experience, right? when they made a choice to attend this institution and play a sport that they love, and then the officials are mucking up the game and, you know, not calling it even. And that was just that it drew a great sense of passion in me, and it made me start to think about just these other experiences that I've had throughout my coaching career. Right? You talked about my start at the NAIA. I had coached 10 years before that on the men's side, and had experienced a bunch of different things in my career during that time. And I just felt like I wanted to get that story. I wanted to get these stories out. I wanted to share. I wanted to share about my experiences, and how I made mistakes, how I triumphed over certain things, how we deal with the challenges of trying to maintain a family in this coaching profession. You know, things that I've failed at a lot of things that I really wanted. I wanted that text to be. I wanted, there was a couple things I wanted. I wanted to share my journey. I wanted to also encourage coaches to recognize that they can be more than just what it is they do on that floor. That we can write books, that we can teach courses, that we can coach other coaches, right? That we can build businesses. You know, if you're a coach, you're a business, right? You're a CEO of an entity, of a business entity. And I really wanted to start to help coaches shift that thought and expanding the capacity of who and what that they could be and achieve. So I thank you for asking that question.
Oh, that's good stuff. And you really kind of gave me a segue to go into the next segment, but we ain't going there yet. Because there's one other thing that I really want to ask you about before we move on. The doctorate. You're pursuing your doctorate in higher education leadership. So how is that pursuit? How has that influenced your perspective on the challenges and then opportunities in higher education today, specifically higher education at historically Black colleges and universities?
Coach P, I would say one of the things that we don't think about is leadership is severely lacking in our society, right? Ethical leadership, right?
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
You know, and I've always seen my leadership not as wanting to tell people what to do, but wanting to help people achieve their dreams. How can I help you get to what it is where you're trying to get to, right? And in my interactions, I'm very pointed in the questions that I ask, right? I'm not someone that's going to have idle conversation. I want to talk to you. I want to listen to what it is you're trying to achieve, what your goals are, right? What are you trying to do? Because I may have something in my experiences that can help you get to that, right? Most people enter into relationships for ways that they can benefit. And I read a book. I was actually at the Houston Final Four. I was on when I was coaching men, and a man spoke. His name was Bob Bodine. He wrote a book called The Power of Who. And I read that book, and it really connected with my spirit in that it talked about the things that we want in life, right? That if we work twice as hard to help other people get to what it is they're trying to get to, the universe will magically open up to you the things that you want. And I think we as a society need to shift our thought in how we enter into relationships and how we add value to other people, not just looking for ways on how I can use you to get to what I'm trying to do. How can I help you? So I say all that to say, wanting, and what I've been able to do as a coach and as an administrator, I really just wanted to expand my leadership capacity. I wanted to challenge myself. I wanted to be in a construct where I can continue to learn and grow and develop, ultimately be coached, right? I have a sincere love and dedication to our HBCUs, and I feel like they continue to need ethical and altruistic leadership. And I want to put myself in a position to be able to provide that in some way, shape, or form. And I feel like adding a credential such as a doctorate helps do that, right? We know people, right? And I always felt like this. Doctorates, most people get doctorates to think because they think it should allow them to do less work. A doctorate provides you the capacity to do more work, to have more influence, to be able to help more people, right? It's not for you to just chill and rest on your laurels. And I want to be I want to put myself in a position where I can have more influence to help more people, to expand and further our institutions and innovate our institutions.
Coach, that is excellent perspective. That is excellent perspective. The doctorate opens the door for more work to be done, not less work. That's excellent perspective. Somebody needed to hear that. I know somebody who's going to tap into this need to hear that. All right, Coach, one more thing before we pivot. You serve on the HBCU subcommittee for the advancement of Blacks in sports. How important is that association? So I did a little digging, did a little research, and I'm like, man, this is good, but I know that there's more happening than what I was able to see. How important is the ABIS?
So ABIS stands for the Advancement of Blacks in Sports. It was founded by Gary Charles, who actually is a Cheney alum. Gary was a longtime AAU coach and advisor to people like Kobe Bryant and a lot of different professional athletes. But during what's been called the racial reckoning and the pandemic, there was a lot of conversation around opportunities for Blacks in sports and the lack of them. And Gary, along with people like Felicia Hall Allen, Dr. Ingrid Wicker McCree, got involved and created this entity to help start to help push the narrative about more Blacks being able to acquire positions of leadership in college and professional sports. One of the things that I was really passionate about with ABIS provided, they provide financial literacy for student athletes. And we were one of the first at Delaware State. I was able to create a cohort with our student athletes where we were on weekly calls, getting financial literacy information, learning about stocks, learning about savings, learning about retirement. At the cohort commences with each student getting $100,000 in play money, and they put it into the stock exchange, right, for a week. And they pick some different stocks and they sell, they buy. And over the course of the week, at the end of the week, whoever does the best gets a financial reward. And to see our students, and even me, like I would be on those calls, trying to get nuggets, encouraging our coaches to get on those calls, because it was really good information. Gary was really intentional about having, people from Fortune 500 companies, people who've done extremely well in the financial realm, spend time with our students. And I don't think everybody's getting that type of access to that information. So for ABIS to provide that for our students at Delaware State and then other schools in the Mideastern Athletic Conference, it showed a great commitment to me about what they were willing to invest in HBCU student athletes. So I'm thankful for my involvement with ABIS.
Listen, that's impactful, especially, and I'm just going to connect some dots here, especially when it comes to NIL and the other opportunities that student athletes are going to have financially. They have to know how to manage that money. For those who will be professionals, whether it's an athletic professional or professional in something else, knowing the, man, just the ins and outs of things like saving versus investing, saving and investing, the different types of insurance, the different types of insurance policies, having a will, knowing what a trust is, right? Starting your own company and knowing how to manage it. So if we can make sure that our kids have that skill, now we can better budget to give back to our HBCUs. So now we can put more in that bucket. So now the cooperatives or whatever we have at our HBCUs can even better support our student athletes. Man, so that is incredible. That is super important. I'm gonna have to get with a couple of people that I know to see if the Southwestern Athletic Conference has anything like that going on with its student athletes, because that is very necessary. Kyle, man, we could literally go all day, but we're gonna pivot right here. Man, there is literally so much here. I'm trying to figure out where I want to pull from next. But we're gonna do this. Play a game with me. Actually, before we play this game, let's do this. If you could have been anything other than a coach, what would you have been?
If you were to ask me that question 10 years ago, 20 years ago, I would have said a history teacher. Right.
Interesting.
But when you ask me that question today, it would be a business owner. I think, I didn't, the mindset of starting a business came to me later in life. I think that a lot of times we're educated to be employees.
Oh, definitely. The educational system is designed to build employees, not entrepreneurs.
Yeah. And so to answer your question, I would have wished that I started the entrepreneurial journey much earlier, but I'm excited. Today I was working on some different things, some other endeavors, and I just think it's important for us to be able to build, the creativity. So few of us tap into our creativity to build different things. So I would say to you, an entrepreneur.
I tell you what, man, we don't know what we don't know, right?
Yeah.
So very, very similar to you. That is the one thing that I wish I had done, but not knowing. So when I have adult kids, and one of the things that I wish I had done, and I'm preaching to them to ensure that they do, is build a business that they can hire their kids when their kids are in high school. or that they can hire their kids when their kids are in college, or they can hire their kids whenever their kids get out of college. Right. So what I didn't know then, I want to ensure that my next generation and generations also know. All right, Kyle, I'm going to put you in a time machine. You go back, you meet 25-year-old Kyle. What is one piece of advice you would give him?
Oh, wow. That's a great question.
What are you telling 25-year-old Kyle? Look here, young buck.
Invest in Apple.
Hey, great piece of advice. Great piece of advice. Hey, that's real. That's real. All right, check this out. We're going to play a game. We're going to play a game real quick. Are you down for it?
Yes, sir.
All right, so I got some questions here. We can go agree or disagree. We're going to go agree or disagree. So let's try this. Let's see what I got here. I got a big bank of questions. All right, here we go. All right, agree or disagree. Every coach should be required to pursue some type of continuing education in mental wellness support.
Agree. Definitely agree.
Okay. Primary goal. What's the primary goal? This is an either or question. Building character, winning championships. I already know the answer.
Building character.
All right. Agree or disagree. Student athletes today face more pressure than student athletes did 20 years ago.
Today.
Okay. All right. This is a coaching question right here. Either or. Data analytics for your game strategy or the feel for coaching?
The feel for coaching.
Yeah, man. Listen, we can look at some numbers, but sometimes you just got to feel it.
Yeah, you got.
All right. Agree or disagree? NIL policies have, on balance, been good for athletes.
Well, what I would say is the mere fact that we're talking about NIL, that we have NIL, is a good thing. Now, you were starting to see people trying to limit different things, and but the fact that we're in this landscape, you think about how long it took us to get here, and how much money has been made on the back of athletes for the last 100 or so years. The fact that we're here and they can benefit from their name, image, and likeness, I think, is an advancement.
That's good. All right, check this out. Either or. Would you rather be a great strategist or a great motivator? That's a great question, because I find myself always trying to be. I always found myself trying to be a bit of both. Okay.
And
which one do you think is more impactful?
I would say motivation, but I don't use motivation. Because I think motivation is fleeting. I want to be a mobilizer. I want to move people. I want to get people to act. Right? You could be when I talk about my speaking, I don't want to be a motivational speaker. I want to be a mobilization speaker. I want to move people.
Listen, you see me? You see me? I'm writing it down. Man, you gonna hear that again. And they're gonna be like, man, that's good, Coach P. I'm like, listen, I got that from Kyle Adams from It's Bigger Than the Ball, LLC. Y'all need to tap in with it. Man, that's good. I want to be a mobilization speaker. Dang, that's good. Hey, that's good. I'm not gonna ask you any. Actually, I do have one more question I want to ask. I just want to see what you say about this. Agree or disagree? Every educational leader needs a podcast.
I agree.
I
agree. I think And I think for a couple different ways. I think to share their thoughts and their pedagogy, right? Because I think, and I talk about this, and I've done different speeches about coaches having a pedagogy. What is it? What are the learning outcomes, regardless if your kids win or lose? What are kids equipped with when they leave you? What are the learning outcomes that you develop in them, regardless if he's your best player or the last guy on the bench? Kids should leave you with something, and you should have some dedicated thought as to how you prepare for that. But I think it's good for educators to have platforms where they can, if for no other reason, to share their thoughts, but to also get information, right? To have people on that can share information with them to help them learn and grow.
Listen, that is the main reason for this podcast. I've come, this is, I want to say episode 29 or so. And what I've done is I've come to call this a masterclass in athletic leadership. It's more than a podcast. It's a masterclass in athletic leadership. All right, Kyle, man, we are in crunch time. This has been solid gold, man. This is so good. This is so good, man. You got so many gems. I love it. All right, crunch time works like this. We go 3, 2, 1. So basketball is my background. Basketball is your background. So the 3 is 3 in the key. Kyle, tell us 3 things that all athletic professionals need.
A spiritual foundation, a growth mindset, and a spirit of grace.
That's good. Tell us more about that spirit of grace.
I think grace is extremely important in all of our interactions, but you think about it, kids make mistakes.
There it is.
Right? They're gonna miss shots, they're gonna miss blockouts, they're gonna get blown by. And how do we model an environment that doesn't beat you up for your last mistake, but loves you up through it and expects more from you? And I think for coaches have to be that way with today's athletes, but I think it's important to model that so young people can do that with each other. And you can watch that in action on the floor, right? You got beat on defense, gave up an and one. We huddle. Come on, man. Yo, we got you, man. We got the next one. You got it. You know what I mean? And you're feeling bad about it, right? And we know you're feeling bad about it, but we're loving you up. What is that building you? You don't want to let your team down, right? But that comes from a spirit of grace and loving people through their mistakes. And I think we don't have enough grace on the floor, in our coaching staffs, in our lives. We don't extend grace enough to each other. And we want people to be graceful with us when we have mistakes.
Yeah. Man, that's good. That's good. That was 3 in the key. Coaches, I hope y'all wrote that down. If you didn't write that down, this is where I want you to go ahead and rewind and then get those 3 again. All right, Kyle, this brings us to 2 shots. What are 2 of the most foul experiences that you've had in the profession?
I watched, and I've never talked about this. I watched a woman who I worked with as an athletic director be marginalized and disrespected by an administration that really operated in levels of cronyism and elevating people, friends. And I watched those women. This woman has been a professional in college athletics for over 25 years. And I watched her just be diminished. And I really work to support her, and on our staff work to support her as much as we could. And you see a lot of foul things in college athletics. And I think I don't know, your listening audience, but I would think that there are coaches that listen who aspire to work at the college level. And you see a lot of really foul things happen. That's why I think it's extremely important to be in situations that provide ethical congruence, right? In that requires you to stand for something. You have a lot of people that just take jobs, and they'll mess over kids, they'll mess over people. And I ain't built that way.
Yeah.
And as I shared with you earlier, it was disturbing for me to watch as someone who wants to support women and recognizing that women have a hard time in society, but especially in college athletics and positions of leadership. I was watching this morning, not to get off topic, but you got people throwing sex toys on the floor at WNBA games, and like, what are we doing?
Yeah. That is.
So I've seen a lot of foul things. I guess the other thing, without going too far off, is to watch, to coach kids and watch them be cheated by officials. Like, watch it, and being in the fight and trying to advocate and protect them, and feeling like you can't protect them from the people who are supposed to be stewarding the game and the officials. So I've seen some stuff. I didn't want to bring the vibe down, but I felt like I needed to be sincere.
No, we have to. I ask every guest that, and the range of answers that I have gotten, because what we do it's very fulfilling, but it can be difficult at times. So I don't want people to always be looking through these rose-colored glasses as we're sharing all of these great things that we do. I want people to understand that, there's some difficult things we deal with. When other coaches are watching, I want them to know that, hey, you thought you might have been the only person that experienced this. No, you're not the only one. This person who was on the podcast could be a resource for you. I want you to reach out to them.
Yeah.
I want you to reach out to them. All right, Kyle. Man, this has been good. This brings us to the very last segment of the podcast. This is and one. This can be anything that you would like to share with our watchers or listeners before we get out of here. What you got for us?
Oh, man. First, Coach P, thank you just for the opportunity to be with you and to talk with you. But thank you also for having a platform to share and grow coaches and to share vital information with coaches. I would say the greatest thing I would want to share with coaches is continue to grow yourself. Be insatiable about growing yourself, expanding yourself. There are so many things that you can learn and add to your tool belt, from in how coaching continues to evolve. And I talk a great deal with coaches and student athletes about, this influx of artificial intelligence. The one thing that will not change is our ability to do this, right?
That's it.
For one person to add value to another, right? And the only way I'm able to continue to add value to people is to continue to add value to myself and to grow myself and develop myself. What I'm reading, what I'm watching, what I'm listening to, what I'm meditating on, right? I tell coaches, read everything you can get your hands on. Don't just read books that are about coaching. right? Read about leadership. Read everything that you can find. And just recognizing that the role of a coach, the word coach stems from, it's a Hungarian word, and uh, it comes from medieval times with stage coaches, right? Or coaches who were drawn by horses. And the term means to move people from one place to another. And that's what coaches do. They move people to places they can't get on their own. And the only way that we'll be able to continue to do that is to continue to grow ourselves in the ways we need to. So,
Man, that is outstanding. Coaches, grow yourselves so that you can continue to move people from one place to the next. And when you read, you don't necessarily have to read about your sport. Listen, this is what I'm reading right now. Love as a business strategy. Just something different. That's what I'm reading right now. Listen, Kyle, man, this has been outstanding. Before I do the outro, if people want to find you or follow you, how can they connect with you?
My website is currently under reconstruction. I have a heavy presence on Instagram. My Instagram is Coach KA20. Coach P asked me about my Twitter earlier. I've been banned from Twitter proudly, I will say.
There it is.
Just because I advocate for our HBCUs and try to share truth. I'm also heavy on LinkedIn, and I would say to coaches, I don't, a lot of coaches may not be on LinkedIn. Coaches, get on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn is my name, Kyle Adams, MED. You can also follow the hashtag It's Bigger Than the Ball. As Coach P shared earlier, I have a podcast. It's called the It's Bigger Than the Ball podcast. And I've also authored a book. It's called Discarding the Mask, The Soul Sacrifices of a Coach. And that can be found on Amazon.
It's good stuff. Good stuff. All of that will be in the show notes. So when you're watching, listening, make sure you go to the show notes. All of those resources will be available for you. Y'all tap in with Coach Adams at Coach KA20 on IG. Y'all plug in with him on Instagram. I know I need to do a better job myself on Instagram. So, Coach, you'll be getting a request from me real soon. All right. And then hashtag It's Bigger Than the Ball. Tap in with him. You can find the book. We'll make sure we put that in the show notes. Listen, everybody, thank you for joining us here on the Coaches Co-op. Big thanks to our guest, Kyle Adams, for sharing his journey and his wisdom. If you are walking away with new insight or energy for your team, for your program, or for yourself, then we did our job. Make sure you hit that like button, follow, subscribe, leave a 5-star review. Your ratings and reviews help other coaches find us. Share the show. Help us grow the co-op community where coaches do what most people can't. And, like we say, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. Kyle, hang back with us while I get us out here. For everybody, Kyle Adams, I'm Coach P. See y'all next time in the co-op.
Thank you, Coach P.